In this video, I tear my dash apart to install two different products. The first is a front-facing camera and a dash-mounted toggle switch that allows me to switch back and forth between my front and rear cameras by anytime backup camera. The second is a no-drill dash mount kit from LabOps Gear that I use to mount accessories to my dash and a USB hub to power them. If you have a 5th Gen 4Runner that's a 2020 or older, like I do, you know you don't have a front-facing camera. Now, I didn't think that was necessarily a big deal. Sure, not having a front-facing camera makes it a bit harder to parallel park, and I get it, but until I started wheeling my 5th Gen, I never realized how much of my vision is blocked from this big old hood. Now, I don't know what it is about my 3rd Gen that's different, but not having a front-facing camera didn't seem to be that big a deal. With my 5th Gen, navigating around rocks and tree stumps without it is done more by feel and hope. After a few years, I finally gave in and bought a front-facing camera and a dash-mounted switch to toggle between the front and rear cameras by anytime backup camera. I've been running it for a few months now, and let me tell you, it's well worth the investment. If you have a 2020 or older, like I do, I highly recommend it. Not only is having a front-facing camera super nice, it's awesome to be able to view what's going on behind you at any given time, and not only when your transmission is in reverse. I use this all the time to check on things behind me while I'm driving, especially when I'm towing my trailer, or when my bike is on my hitch-mounted bike rack, or when I'm using my hitch-mounted cargo container. I needed to take the infotainment section of my dash apart to install the anytime backup camera, as I needed to get to the back of the head unit. So since I had it all tore apart, I took this as an opportunity to install a no-drill dash mount kit from LabOps Gear. Now this thing's pretty cool. It allows me to mount different devices on my dash in a secure way, and to also power these devices using the supplied powered USB hub. The thing that I really like about this LabOps Gear dash mount kit is that when you don't have your devices attached to it, it's hard to tell at a quick glance that it's not OEM. So if you've watched my videos in the past, you know when I'm wheeling and I have my devices out, I'm proud to display them. But when I'm driving my truck during the week and I don't need those things, I like to tuck them away and make everything look as OEM as possible. So that's what I really like about this LabOps Gear kit. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's get to the install. So the first thing I need to do is remove these side panels here. And these things just pop out. Just put a little pressure on it and it comes right off. And I'll do the same on this side. And the whole thing came out, which is okay. Now I'm going to disconnect the clips back here so that I can remove this climate control altogether. So I'll just pull that clip out. So I'll just go ahead and set this down here. So now there's two 10mm bolts here that I'm going to extract so I can bring this USB and cigarette lighter and this little shelf, bring this out so I can get access to it. So go ahead and grab my 10mm and take this off. And then I should be able to just pull this out a little. So it just should just pull right out. So now with this, now you can see here, the plug on the right is the cigarette lighter and the plug on the left is the USB connector. I don't want to mess with the USB connector because I really enjoy my Apple CarPlay and I don't want to mess that up. So I'm going to be tapping into the cigarette lighter, so that the plug on the right with the LabOps connector. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this plug off here, off of this cigarette lighter. So just reach in here and pull, try to release this tab. Pull that out a little bit. So here you see I have the red wire and then the white with the black stripe. So here's the connector for the LabOps Gear plate, and then we have these vampire connectors that we'll be using to attach or to tap into that cigarette lighter plug. So that's what we'll be doing right now. So the way these work is I'm going to be tapping into each of these wires, putting the blunt end connection through this. I'll do that on both. And then for the wiring harness, I just go ahead and take off the rest of the pre-stripped wiring, and I'll take the other part of the connector apart, slip this section in, have the wires so that they will fit in here. Okay, I'll grab the end that this would attach to, just push the wire in and just tighten it up. And that's all there is to it. And it gives a nice secure connection. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other one. So same thing for the neutral, for negative, black wire. Slip this end in. Go ahead and then tighten this back up. And there we go. So that's nice and tight. And then to tap it into these wires, just make sure you grab the correct one. So here is the red wire. Go ahead and insert the vampires and tighten this up. And that taps into that wire. And then, because I can't twist this, I'm going to have to take this off and put this end on first, and then come back and put the wire on. So let me put the vampire in. And then I'll go ahead and put this part back on. There we go. So then I'll go ahead and just tuck this back in and attach this back to this cigarette lighter plug. So before I go any farther, I want to test this out to make sure that it has a good connection. And let me put the car in accessory. First thing I'll do is just check to see if my phone is charging.
I thought he had an excellent weekend.
So I got a charge on my phone. I'll move this over to this new USB hub from LabOps Gear. And I see my phone is charging there as well. So this is a good connection and everything is wired up and good to go here. To remove the head unit, I need to remove these 4 10mm bolts. So I have the gear shift covered with a couple towels here. So to remove this, now that I have those 4 bolts removed, I should be able to just pull out here at the bottom. And then should pop out. And then try to pull it out from the top. There we go. And just take it out gently. And just lean it up against the dash and the gear shift here. So I don't think I filmed this. I didn't have the camera angle right, but with this head unit pulled down, this is that faceplate we're going to be removing. There's a screw here, a small little Phillips, and a small little Phillips here. Just screw them, unscrew them, take them out, and try not to drop them. And then once you've done that, this plate should slide right out. And there it is. So this is our factory plate that we'll set aside. So here's that faceplate, and it's going to slide in just like so. But before we do that, we want to get this USB plug installed. So we'll get that lined up the way we want it. Flip it over, put on this nut here, and just hand tighten it so that it's nice and secure. Now I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect the wire. So the black on the negative, the red on the positive. And then I should be able just to slide this back in. There we go. Okay, so we'll take those same screws that we took out of the OEM faceplate and put them in the same location. Okay, that's nice and tight. Great. So this part of the job is done. If I was only doing this job, I would just bring the head unit back up and get everything buttoned up. But because I'm going to be installing the Anytime camera, that's going to have to wait, and we'll be tackling that job right now. So, so there's 2 bags that came with the Anytime backup camera. This is the front camera itself. So if I pull this out, here's the long lead that goes to the front camera and also then attaches to the back of the head unit. We have the camera that will attach to the front end. We'll just leave that in the bag for now. And some basic instructions on that camera portion, along with some 3M adhesive and some other mounting hardware. So that's the camera part. And then here, what goes inside the cab, let's open up this bag. So this is a relay that will attach to the back of the factory radio. And these are the 2 harnesses that will attach to the back of the radio. So this one and this one. And here you see there's various RCA connections on these, and we'll figure out how to wire that up. And finally, we have the lead for the switch that will attach to the dash. And let me just open this up. So this will be in our dash, and this is the lead that attaches to that. So we'll follow the directions from Anytime backup camera and get this wired up and ready to install. So here are the connectors that we're going to be putting in between the factory harness. So we have this one here that is I already have connected to the relay through these RCA jacks. We have the relay itself, and then we have this other one that has this long lead that will go to our switch. So we're gonna just one at a time take the appropriate connector off the back of the head unit and replace it with, or not replace it, but put this in between that and the radio. So that's what we'll be doing now. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and unplug these. So just pinch on the connector here and pull that out, and I'll do the same for this one in the middle. So now we have these two disconnected. Okay, so the one here that I have already connected to the relay, that is going to go into this slot right here. Then I'll grab the other end and connect it to the factory harness. And we got a nice click there. Then I'll take the other harness and I'll insert this piece here into the back of the head unit. Ensure it's nice and seated. Take the other end and install it in the factory harness. So then you'll see that there's two wire looms, one coming off each of those harnesses. One with the red and orange, and then another with the blue and a gray. So we'll just set those aside for now. So I'm going to mount this relay here. I'm going to take this bolt out of the back of the radio and maybe put a washer here and install that. So that's sitting there right attached to the radio. So here I have that relay attached to the back of the radio. So right now I have some zip ties. I'm going to try to clean this wiring up here. So these are the wires that I will need to connect yet, but everything else, all these RCA jacks, I'm just going to try to zip tie these together, try to clean things up just a little bit. So the black wire that's coming out of the relay, I'm just going to put a hoop connector, and I'm going to ground this out to the radio. So I'm just going to crimp this on. Then on the side of the radio, there's some bolts that hold the radio on. I'm just going to pop one off, and I will attach that ground there. Okay, so now we're going to start connecting some wires. So I have the green line, the green wire from the extension wire that went through the firewall to power the front camera. I have a green wire from the relay that I'm going to attach to just a scrap piece of green wire that I have, because I'm going to be running the switch to the left side of the steering wheel, And to do that, I need a little bit longer wire. So I'll go ahead and put this longer piece on so that I can get it wired up. I'll be using some butt connectors to get these seated. So now I've got my wires from the various sources, whether it's the relay, whether it's the front camera or the harnesses. And then I have the connector that's going to go to the switch with the various wires. So I'm just going to go ahead and just hook up light color to light color. And then I'll be running this down behind the dash. Okay, so I've got all the wires connected except for this ground, which I'll connect when I get it in its position. And then I got everything taped up, so I have a nice somewhat tight loom here that I can then feed down through behind the dash. So I popped this cover off here. I've done this so many times since I've had my Switch Pro controller on here. All you have to do is just pry out here, and this pops out, and I disconnected all the different the cables that were connected to that. And then I just popped out this blank here because that's where that switch is going to go. I'll run my wire loom up through here, through that hole, and then we'll get that switch in there. So now I've got this cover back in place, everything wired back up, and then have the wire loom running through here, the connector. And then the last thing I need to do is, we have this ground. I'll need to put an eye hook on that and ground that out to the chassis. So I have the camera lead ran through that grommet on the passenger side, and I have it zip tied along the fender here, behind the air box, and then down into the front of the in front of the radiator. There's a black wire and a red wire that comes out of that camera lead. The red wire I just have snipped off and the end taped, and then the black wire I have run to the driver's side over to my bus bar, my negative or neutral bus bar on my Switch Pro controller. But you can ground it out anywhere on the body. I just chose to ground it out on my bus bar. Okay, so I am in the car. I don't have the radio installed, I just have it sitting up here right now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn on the accessory, get this thing going. And if I go over here to where my switch is, I see that it is lit up, which is a good sign. If I go back here, and if I just turn on, while it's even booting up, I can turn on my camera. So I just turned on the rear camera, so I know that's working. Let me switch to the front, and the front is working. Although, as you can see, it's mirrored, and those grid lines are there, so I'll definitely want to remove those, and I'll show you how to do that in a bit. And then here I got the switch in neutral, and it's in its normal position and at the home screen. So everything seems to be working. Let me just toggle back to the front, toggle back to the center, and then finally toggle back to the rear. So everything we've done so far has worked, so let's go ahead and get the radio installed and the rest of the dash put back together. So just a final check here. I got the dash put back together. I'll go ahead and click the front camera and then back to the back. So we're good. So the next step is to get that front camera installed in its proper place and then configured the way we need it. So let's take a look at where I'm going to be mounting this. So I do have this low profile bumper on here, my winch bumper, but it looks like this, if I put this camera here in the normal position where everybody else seems to put theirs, under the under the Toyota emblem here, and right in front of this Toyota Safety Sense monitor, that it's not going to really impact the field of vision that I'm concerned about. I know this bull bar will probably block any upward visibility, but that's not what I'm really concerned about. It's more, parallel here or down. So I'm gonna just go ahead and drill a hole here. I've marked off where I need to drill it, and we'll run that camera up through there. So the moment of truth, I have my 5/16 drill bit on here. I've got this marked off where I want it. Okay, now we're at the point of no return. I'm gonna just slowly drill a hole where I have it marked. Okay, there we go. So the camera comes with, of course, the flange nut here, and then it also comes with some 3M pads. And it looks like they have some sort of a slant to them, so you can try to position the camera the way you want it. I mean, the trick is, once you get the camera on, unless you take it all apart again, it's not like you can replace it. So you kind of have to just pick one and kind of go with it. So I'm going to pick one that just is, I guess, level, without any kind of a pitch, and we'll run that onto the camera. Hopefully that'll work out. So here's that wedge on here. I'm just going to take the tape off. Come on. And we'll just press it onto the camera. Like so. So now I'm just going to take the other end of the camera feed and run it up through that hole. Okay, so the next part is I need to slide this flange nut into the wire, down the wire, and then try to tighten it up behind the grill. Now, I'm trying to be optimistic here. I'm trying to think, oh, I can do this without having to take the bumper cover off, but I'm gonna give it a try, but chances are I'm gonna have to pop this off, at least loosen it up so that I can get a wrench in there, but let's see. So I found out that my camera footage didn't capture this, but I wanted to show you, I used just a 1/2-inch ratchet wrench, and I fed the wire down through the wrench, and I was able to get in there enough room to just get a couple clicks to be able to tighten that nut up on that camera without having to take that whole shroud off. So I got this wrench on here. I mean, I'm only getting one click at a time, but that's okay. Slow and steady. I'm able to tighten this thing up. It's going to save me from taking this whole thing apart, so that's a plus. Well, that worked. I mean, it wasn't quick, but it was still better than having to take everything off, so I'll call that a win. Okay, so before we go any further, let's see how the camera looks. I guess before we do that, I do want to show that I think I originally had the camera in this slot, and as you can see, or the camera switch, and as you can see, I moved it over here. And the reason I did that is I found that I couldn't see the switch with the steering wheel blocking it, so I ended up just moving these around. So just wanted to show you that for completeness here. So let's put this thing in accessory mode, and let me flip on that front camera, and here we go. So I do see that the bull bar is visible, and it does block a little bit of the view, but I think this is going to be fine. I'm not going to change it at this point. I think this is going to work out well. I do notice that the camera is mirrored, so I will have to snip one of those wires to fix that, and I'll show you that once I get to that point. I'm not sure about the grid lines. Maybe I'll keep them initially, and then I'll probably end up snipping the wire to remove the grid lines as well, but I might leave them on for now. Okay, so at the end of the camera lead, you see that there's a purple wire, a green wire, and a white wire. The purple wire, that you would snip that if you were changing the orientation of the camera from what we have here. The green wire, you would snip that if you don't want to have the grid lines. And I may end up snipping those wires at some point, but I'm going to keep them for now. But to remove the mirroring, I need to snip this white wire. So I'll just go ahead, snip it. I'll just tape it down so that it doesn't connect itself. And then we'll get this thing wired back up. So the last thing I need to do before I secure all these wires is get the camera connected to the camera lead. Now you could barely see that, but there's a little arrow, and you need to match it up with a little arrow on the camera. Push it together. And then I'm going to take some electrical tape and just tape up that connection so that that doesn't pull out. Okay, so we got all the wires tucked away, zip tied together. Everything's nice and secure. Go ahead and put on the engine cover. And we'll wrap this job up. And of course I dropped one. Well, there you go. So got the job done. I'm really happy that I was able to do it without having to take the front bumper cover off. Not that I can't do that. I've done that when I put on my low profile bumper. But hey, if I can get away with not having to take it apart, I'll do that any day. A couple scratches on my arms, it's okay. So I hope you found this content useful. If you do, consider subscribing to my channel, give me a thumbs up, as that incentivizes me to create additional content. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching.